Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talks and Tea with me, Tonya Nicole. We're getting started in 30 seconds. If you are just now joining me today, let me tell you, I am so excited. I have a very special guest, my Morehouse brother, Colonel Stephen Coffey, and we are going to be getting started in 30 seconds. So grab your tea or coffee and come on in, say hello in the comment box. We're getting started in 30. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talks and Tea with me, Tonya Nicole, and my very special guest today, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment, but I went ahead and put him up on the screen because I'm excited. I have my Morehouse brother here to join us. If you are coming on, go ahead and say hello. Tell me what tea you're drinking or whatever you're drinking today. And I am excited. We're going to have an all the way live conversation. We're going to be talking about life and purpose and parenting and Spelman and Morehouse, all things HBCUs and whatever else we can do. Okay. If you see, I have on my Morehouse sweatshirt. Stephen has on his Morehouse sweatshirt. So we're giving all the love today. I am very excited. I'm going to do a quick introduction of Stephen, and then we're going to jump right in, tell you what tea we're drinking tonight and about our mugs and go from there. So I am with, as I said, my Morehouse brother, great friend of over 20 years, because we're old now. Lieutenant Colonel Stephen L. Coffey. He works in the Pentagon, and he just got back from a year-long deployment in the Middle East. And something I am quite proud of, I'm going to take credit because your win is my win. He just finished his second master's at Georgetown University in clinical quality and safety. And he did that while he was deployed over there fighting for our freedom and for the freedom and humanity of others. He went and did something for himself as well. But what he did was unique because although he did it for himself, what he is going to be doing with it is to serve others. So we're going to talk about vision, goal setting, and all of the gamuts in between. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you so much. And to your wonderful audience, I really appreciate being here. Let me just tell you about what's in my mug first. So first,
hold it up. Let me see.
So the Morehouse mug, because this is one of my favorite ones. But so I am drinking a nice Keurig tea from Doha, Qatar.
Oh, is it good?
It's amazing.
Like what is it? Okay, I was just about to say, ooh, sure.
I only have about 6 left, but I will send you one because thank you so much for all the care packages you sent while I was deployed too. So,
well, it's so funny because I really suck when it comes to writing letters, but I was determined. So there's only been a few times, my brother's in the military as well. He's in the Army. But when he leaves, I always try to resolute for myself is you're going to send them care packages because they need to know you love them. There's somebody thinking about them. So definitely my pleasure.
No, they were so good. I appreciate them. And my troops that were out there with me, I had about 60 folks that work with me. They were like, man, you get mail every day. And I'm like, yeah, I do.
That's cool because people love you. That's what you say. Yeah, people love me.
It's like, I write letters, so.
You do. That's what I love. Actually, I had the card up here, the Christmas card that you sent me, where you were like, I'll be back by the time you get this. I just got it. So yeah, that's cool.
I had a box I mailed myself before I left. I still ain't got it. So, just for my clothes that I mailed home. So anyway.
I love it. The kids enjoyed it. Like they enjoyed making the care packages. That's why you got some really crazy things in there. I was like, really? We're going to send him a notepad and paper? And they were like, yes, he needs it. It's like, he doesn't.
Yes.
But okay.
I think, you know.
They were serious. They were like, we're going to send this. Okay, go ahead, kids. Enjoy. I am drinking this blue haze tea from More Fire Teas. And I don't know if you've been watching this, but one of our sponsors, More Fire Teas,
More fight.
More Fire. I love it. But
I like it.
these amazing teas. Oh my goodness. And all these health benefits and everything. So I love my tea. And then I don't know if you can see, but my mug is Spellman blue and maroon.
I
It's
love it.
to us.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, it's really good. Morehouse was such an amazing dream of mine, and so just kind of to take you back, Morehouse was my vision. I wanted to go to Morehouse ever since I was a little boy, and I remember talking to my barber, Jake Sherrill. So he just got on Facebook this year. So
shout out
he's
to
in
you,
at Bel Air Barbershop in Nashville, Tennessee. So
nice.
He just got on Facebook. And so I remember telling him I wanted to go to Morehouse, and his face lit up like Christmas, like a kid on Christmas. So I'm like, well, it must be something special about this school. And then, of course, I saw School Days and everything else. I was like, ooh. And so Morehouse was always my dream. It was my vision. And when I think about this vision stuff, and I want to touch on that really quickly, I go back to, as a man of faith, in the book of Habakkuk, where it says, write the vision and make it plain, right? Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision and make it plain. And so as I started school, I started at a really small college in South Carolina called Voorhees College, Denmark, South Carolina. 3 stoplights, 1 flashing yellow light, a McDonald's, a Hardee's, and a Subway away from your heart. That's where I was. Very small. And so I started there, but my goal was to go to Morehouse. And I did well in school there, 3.8, 3.9 GPA. And they sent me to school overseas. And so I studied abroad, doing international politics in London, England, at Whitelands College, Roehampton Institute, University of Surrey. And so it was a great opportunity. But my vision was to go to Morehouse. And in 19, I transferred to Morehouse. And so it's one of those things that when I talk about writing a vision and making it plain, it's not just to say I have a vision of going to college. Because if that was just to go to college, I would have stopped and said, I've made it to Voorhees, great school. I thank God for going there. But my vision was to go to Morehouse, not just go to college, but to go to Morehouse. And beyond just to say I want to go to Morehouse, I wanted to graduate in the year 2000, which was my graduating class. And I graduated. Write the vision, make it plain.
I love that. I love the way you're so specific with it as well. I talk a lot about manifestations and how we just have to focus on those positive things. And I love that you were intentional about your vision and then you focused on that positive part. Now, I don't know. Tell us, did you have challenges? Like, why did you go to Voorhees first instead of just going directly to Morehouse?
So I'll tell you what's interesting about it is that as a lot of kids who grew up in single parent homes, and I did, money was an issue, right? And so I believe in Pell Grants and all those things because I had those. I learned how to do a FAFSA form, and so I didn't have the money. And my mom, I'll never forget this. So quick story about Voorhees. I don't think we have a little more time. I can kind of go into this. When I was going to go to Voorhees, I worked at Taco Bell in high school. Now, I thought I was getting over because I didn't want to work during the week. Truthfully, I only worked on Friday and Saturday. What high school kid wants to work on Friday and Saturday from 6 to 3 a.m.?
Joke was on you.
I didn't get that at the time. I thought I was like, yeah, I got them. I'm not going to, And when I met this guy named Ricky, and Ricky Lathan was working there also. He was the manager. I worked on the shift. His wife was in dental school at Meharry. Look at that HBCU love right there.
I love it.
He said, hey, man, you should go and apply to go to Voorhees. I was like, I never heard of Voorhees. What? I know Jason Voorhees with the mask and the machete.
Not
You should
Jason.
probably Crystal Lake.
Wow.
I
No.
said, I don't know anything about that. And so I said, but as a man of my word, I applied. And Voorhees was the first school to accept me. And I'm like, nah, but I'm going to Morehouse. I want to go to Morehouse. And I'll never forget when they called me. I'm so bad at lying. They called me and said, hey, you're accepted. Are you coming? And I said, oh, you're the first school to accept me, but my first choice school accepted me. You cannot be the first school to accept me if the first choice school has already accepted. Okay, you
You were
can't
just
really lie.
man fast. No, no.
That was it
Sorry.
was
I can't fix it.
I was trying to make that deep back when I was 18. It didn't come out deep at all. So yeah. But so I ended up going to Voorhees. And so what happened was that I didn't have the money. And my mom literally the first, I think it was around July, the first weekend of July, they make you pay half your tuition. My mom was like, I do not have the money to send you to Morehouse. I'm a single parent. My sister had just started school at Bryn Mawr College in Pennsylvania. And my mom had just gone back to school to get her associate's degree. She ended up graduating, having a bachelor's degree and stuff as well. But she started school when I did, right? Because she had us really young. And so I did what I thought every other Black man does, which is go join the army. And so, and I was ready to go down there, and no kidding, God intervened, and I got a phone call from Voorhees the Friday before freshman orientation. I am not kidding. They said, hey, we have your housing application. Are you coming to school? Because my mom always told me if you start something, and I do these affirmations with my son, that you have to finish it. And so I not only applied to Voorhees, I did the housing application and everything else. So they called and said, we have your housing application. Are you coming to school? And I said, well, how much does it cost? And they told me, and I said, well, I'm an out-of-state student. How much does it cost? It's the same cost.
Wow.
And I asked my mom, can we afford this? And she said, we'll try. You know, we're struggling. We'll try. And I'll never forget, I left for freshman orientation on like a Monday or Tuesday and got there on Wednesday in the middle of freshman orientation week to college. So Voorhees, when I talk about how they were really like the bedrock of my educational career, I do not ever leave Voorhees out of my story because they're so important, as they were the impetus that got me where I am, you know. And then Morehouse, that was my vision. There were some other guys that were in Voorhees with me that wanted to go to Morehouse, and they didn't quite make it there. But I said, no, this is where I want to go. And when Voorhees sent me to school overseas and I did great over there, I'm like, when I come back, I'm going to Morehouse. And I did. And now, clapping now, it was not clapping when I went back to homecoming. I was stepping on the float with my fraternity brothers, my line brothers, and we stop at the review stand. They like, ain't that the, we paid money.
So I love that. So let's talk about Morehouse. So technically you were a junior when we were freshmen, right?
I was a junior.
But we started together. And I say we because for you all out there, my cousin Michelle, we started together and we were roommates. And Morehouse and Spelman have this thing called a brother and sister program. And I will tell you, a lot of times, way beyond the brother and sister program, I've adopted so many. I adopted so many brothers, like equal brothers, older brothers, younger brothers. But the thing with Spelman and Morehouse brothers, at least for when we were there, they're not a hookup. Like, they are truly your brothers, right? You have to put that out there because people are like, no, they are brothers. Like, you cannot tell me Stephen is not my brother. I wouldn't believe you. Like, he's my brother.
Right. That's right. Don't date your Spelman sister. It never works out.
Yeah, that is exactly what we say. Do not date your Spelman brother. They will make the best brothers and the worst boyfriends or anything else. Like, they're supposed to have your back. And it's so funny because no matter how many times you and I, what the time in between us or the distance or whatever, whenever we connect, it's always that's my brother. Like, he looks out for my kids. You know, it's a common interaction. Like, we are family. And I love that about it.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, I remember when you guys came up to the Pentagon and went to on a tour of the Pentagon with me, and it was
Yes.
a highlight for me to be able to take you to the 18th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force and second African American Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, who is the most senior enlisted person across the entire 347,000 member Air Force. And we went in his office,
How
and
amazing was that?
it was, and he follows us on coffee break too. So Khalif Wright, yes, he does. So him and General C.Q. Brown, who's the chief of staff, the first African American chief of staff of the Air Force. And so it was so amazing that the family bond that we have said that you could just call and say, hey, let's do this. And I make time, not find it, make time to have that tour and spend time with your family and whatnot. So,
And that's the
yeah.
truth. And I love that. Like that meant so much to us. And it wasn't a matter because I've always been one. I'm not the best with keeping in touch, but for me, it's never love loss. When I'm in your city, I'm gonna reach out to you.
Right.
That's like my word. Like if I'm coming to your town, I'm going to reach out to you.
Right.
Otherwise, not hear from me. Um, but that's why I laughed with me sending you care packages. I was like, you're going to write him. But I think there's a value in that because it's not a matter of us using one another or me using you, but
Right.
or vice versa. It's that bond, and it's if I have something. I mean, this is how I see family. Period. If I have something and you need it, then why wouldn't I look out for you? And like I said, it's not a using, it's not a taking advantage of. It is definitely we support one another, and I think that relationship helps change the generational curses that have been left amongst people of color because we've
Yeah.
been taught to think in a way of we support one another, and so that gets enhanced.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. When what we have to understand is that oftentimes what we were taught in the past was not necessarily the right thing,
Right.
um, or the methods that were used back then are not as applicable now, right? So the message that we were taught, the principle that we're taught with how we raise our children, with how we do things, the approaches we take back then, the examples we had were not necessarily the best examples. And so
Right.
this is where I think it's one of those things that in the Black community we are sometimes very reticent to have professional counseling, right? And so as
Mhm.
a former commander with over 800 people under my watch, there's a lot of different personalities with 800 people. There's a lot of different family issues and challenges with people. And what I found is that I had one group of people who were very accessible and amenable to counseling, professional counseling, and other groups of people that weren't. And I'm pretty sure if you were to break it down by race, you could figure out which ones. We were not very, we just weren't. It was a stigma to that,
Yes.
or it was related to saying, oh, you can only go to counseling through your pastor. And God knows, I go to pastoral counseling, but there's also a place for those who are licensed and trained professionally for these things, and we have to embrace that. And so I think that when we start to talk about how you're able to look at our past and look at our upbringings and look at where we're going, is to recognize that what we were taught, while it may have been effective then, may not be the most effective way now. Notice I didn't say it was not effective, but the
Right.
most effective way now. I think about that even with my son, and as I try to now look at getting him to have a love for learning. And so it was interesting. I think about he's 8 years old now, and we'll talk a little bit more about him and all of the stuff that he's been through. But as an 8 year old, third grade, I'm trying to get him to have this love of learning and balance screen time. So when I grew up, we didn't have an issue with screen time. You want to punish me, make me stay in the house, right?
Yes.
Punish my son. You can't go outside. Okay. I'm going to
Sure.
the basement.
Exactly.
Sure.
Most kids are fine in their room because they have everything there
Right.
anyhow nowadays.
Right. And so, but what I'm learning is that the effective, I told myself my New Year's resolution was to not be so dictatorial in my approach toward helping my son to do things. Because when I was raised, it was do as I say, not as I do. Don't ask me questions, just do it.
Because I
Okay,
said so.
because I said so. Why? Because I said so. Because I'm your mama.
Mhm.
Because I said so.
Mhm.
Children are seen and not heard. But what I'm learning now is that while the principle may apply that he needs to be respectful, the method and the way that I go about teaching him cannot be do as I say, don't turn this on, because if I'm not exposing him in a healthy manner, he will get exposed in an unhealthy manner through his peers. And
Yes.
so those are the things that I have to kind of continue to wrestle with. And what I've learned is that I can't just rely on what I've learned in the past from my mom and the experiences and what I've seen within my family, but I can't just rely on what is taught in the church, because even the church has their own flaws, and sometimes we don't want to recognize those things. And so it's really a collection of what you learn from your past, what you learn from the church, what you learn from professional counselors, what you learn from friends and people that you trust, and what your gut instinct is. And I think most of all, what you hear from God when you are in that quiet time with yourself, by yourself, with Him, and you allow Him to talk to you. That's how you start to get to bridge that gap. So I know that's a whole lot of stuff,
It is,
but
but
it
it's
just
good. It's so good, and it's so on point because a lot of things that I say is that just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. And we have
exactly.
yeah, and we have to realize now that we're in this new phase of life. Like there has never been a what day are we on? July? No. There has never been a January 12th, 2021. See, I'm all the way in July. But it has not, right? And so we can't do today what we did yesterday because things have changed. Or a year from now, there wasn't a pandemic in this sense a year from now, a year ago,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
And then think of even years behind then. So, how we adjust in what we're doing based off of the times. I know the Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. However, there are also there are new things, and it means that at the base of it, at the root of it, it may have the same like you said, same principles, the same messages, but our approach does not have to look the same because it's not always going to be effective with every person doing it the
yeah.
exact same way every time.
I think you hit on a really important thing, and we'll jump to whatever the next topics that you want to talk about. But I think you hit on a very important thing when we talk about the generational aspects that we're in now, because we're now toward the tail end of those who were born in the greatest generation, right? And so when you think about what that family looked like, I was listening to a retired Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Bob Gaylor, who I'll give him credit because I love him that much. Usually I'll say when I repeat something, the first time I'm going to give you credit. The second time I repeat it, I'll say, it's been said. And the third time I repeat it, I would say, as I always say.
Right. I'm going to take that.
but,
I'll give you credit for the first one.
the first time, the second time it's been said, third time, as I always say. but but Chief Gaylor, and he's amazing. He's a great storyteller. He talked about this whole generational thing too, and he was born in the end of the Depression. And so when you think about when he was born and the mindset of the Depression era, that you save all you can all you get, you sit on that can because we might have another depression, right?
Mm,
And then you think about what's the next generation, the baby boomer era, where the nucleus of the family started to shrink from being a massive 9, 12 kids because we needed that many kids to work on the farm to give us, for livelihood. It started to shrink into the baby boomers, and the nucleus looked more like four. There's a mom, dad, two kids, something like that. And then when you start to go to this next phase where you're in the 80s and there's the Cold War, and so there's a different mindset we have to bring to what happens in the 80s. There's a different mindset when we hit the guys in the 90s who became millennials in the 2000s. And oh, by the way, let's go now and say there's a different mindset from those from 2000 to 2010 and 2020 because they came in during a pandemic. And so
right.
none of us, the last global pandemic was the Spanish flu of what, 1914, 1918? So
19.
you're looking
Yeah.
here, I think it was 18.
I think
I
it
think it
was
was 19.
18.
I think it
I
was
think it was
18.
18.
But the point that you get after is that there's a generational approach that is different. And the nucleus of that family, where it used to be 12 people in the family, is now down to two. It's down to one because millennials don't want to have kids. I want to have kids later. I'm going to freeze my embryos and have them when I am ready to have them. And so there's a different approach. So again, as you so aptly said and underscored what I said as well, the message hasn't changed, but the method is what has been requires a little bit of tweaking. And so that's where I think we are. There's a generational aspect. We have to always look at those things and say, well, how do I address my child? How do I address my spouse if you have a difference in age? How do I address my parents? I think that's hard. I got a friend in Nashville whose mom is now an octogenarian. And so he's now living together with his mom at 80 years old.
Wow.
And it's like
What's an octogenarian?
80-year-olds.
Oh,
She's
octa.
octa 8.
Got it. I got it. No, I love this. That's good. But even it brings us to this idea of now, how do we parent that? So, can you tell us a little bit about, just briefly, about the journey with your son and then
Yeah.
kind of the theories on parenting? But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and this is us. Right? This is when we got to go visit Stephen at the
Yes.
Pentagon, right?
Yes.
In the Master
Yes.
Sergeant's office.
Chief
Amazing.
Master Sergeant Khalif Wright is an amazing K Wright. He's awesome. He just retired this past I think a couple months ago, and Chief Master Sergeant Joanne Bass, who is also phenomenal. She is the first woman Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Talk about breaking barriers. It's
Right.
amazing to see him and her, and they are doing some phenomenal things for our airmen. So, Jesus. So shout
Just
out
for
to
kicks
Chief
and
Master
giggles.
Sergeant.
I love that. I love that. And just for kicks and giggles, there's me and Stephen. Because
Right.
we
That's
can't
too
take a serious
much.
picture. Okay, go ahead. Share with me your philosophy. I have to. I was like, let me find a picture. I actually have some pictures of you at Morehouse throwing up your Kappa sign and just being
Oh,
chill. And us at
God.
homecoming. Yeah, so if I can find them, I might be pulling those out too.
But so it's interesting when we talk about parenting and to the story of my son. And so I want to pause and kind of pivot just to talk about that for a minute, because that's such an important part of my life that really talked about. It goes into a vision and purpose of how I've changed the vision and purpose of my life now. And so my son Stephen, I call him Deuce. He was born on September 28th, 2012. And so excuse me, Stephen is a very special little boy. And what makes him so special is that he had a liver transplant at the very tender age of 8 weeks old due to a metabolic condition called galactosemia. And so, for those who are not in the medical community, galactosemia is a condition that his body can't break down the simple sugar galactose that's found in human and animal milk. So, his mother's milk that he received, which should be the healthiest thing for him, was actually damaging his liver. And it was unbeknownst to us, and he was medically misdiagnosed. And so, there are so many stories that I could go into, which again, that's what fueled my passion for getting into patient clinical quality and safety in the hospital. So Stephen had this transplant in 2012, and it really changed my life. So everyone says having kids will change you, and it absolutely did. I mean, to know that I am caring for this little life, that this little clay that I can mold and make into the next Barack Obama, the next John Lewis, the next fill in the blank of the person that you admire the most. I can help make him to be that. Um, that was something that really shook me. But then to find out at the 2 month mark of life that his life has totally changed. And I was still a newlywed at the time. I mean, literally, he had his transplant on December 5th, 2012. And so my wife and I spent our first wedding anniversary in the hospital, our
Oh,
first
wow.
Christmas as a married couple. in the hospital. And so that's the kind of stuff that I looked at. We grew up very quickly as parents and had to focus on our son. And you know, those it's worked out so far so good. I mean, there's been challenges as well. We can talk about those things as well. But when I think about parenting, I think the thing that is most important to me, having grown up in a single parent home, is that I'm present. And so there's such an important factor of being present. And I don't necessarily mean that you have to have a mom and dad to be present. No, because you can have, I grew up as a single parent, and my mom, she has a doctor. My sister is a medical doctor, just finished up her master's in public health, or MSPH, yeah, and master's in public health. And you have me as a lieutenant colonel, so 1 out of 2 ain't bad. You know,
2 out of 2, Stephen. 2 out of 2.
1 out of 2 ain't bad. You know? But when you're present, so if you're a single mom, a single dad, and you're raising your child, it's being present in the moment. If you're both parents are there, it's being present in the moment and committing to raising your child or children. And it's so important. And so when I think about my son, every day we have these little affirmations and we say them in the car, and it's amazing. People listen to this, they're amazed that this 8-year-old boy has been saying this for the last 2 years. And I will say, and he finishes the sentence. I'll say hard work, and he says pays off. No shortcuts to success. Talent. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Commitment. Without commitment, you'll never start. Without consistency, you'll never finish. If a task is once begun, never leave it until it's done. Be the labor, great or small, do it well or not at all. You're 24 hours in a day. That's 12 hours to mind your business and 12 hours to stay out of other people's business. I am only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. And I round him out by saying, worry looks around, doubt looks down, regret looks back, but faith looks up, because faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And every single day we say that. Every single day we say it as he's going to school. And so while I understand that he may not fully grasp all of the things that are in there, he may not understand it. I kind of liken it to, as a man of faith, when you give your hand to the preacher and your heart to God, because you sat under so many sermons, you come to church because you enjoy the music. Or in my case, back in the day, I came because I liked this one girl. And so I was like, well, she goes to church, so I might as well go too. So, you know,
Whatever put you in there.
I'm just being honest.
Not so much.
Being honest on Talks and Tea, you know.
Right.
This is real talk, right?
Real talk. Going
But
to
at
church
some point, I did. I was going to church so I could so I could see this girl, and she, yeah. And well, hey, you go to my church too. So I'm coming to Wednesday night Bible study, going to school.
You're the most
but the point is that it's right. But the point I get after is that at some point, what the preacher talked about and what the word said to me resonated with me. And that's what I pray for my son, that when we do these affirmations, but the example that I set for him will resonate with him. So someday the light bulb's going to click. It's going to go off and he's going to say, I get it. I understand what he meant when he said hard work pays off. There's no shortcut to success. I understand that hard work will always beat that talented person, because talent, if you don't work hard, I'm going to outwork you. So that's the kind of stuff that I want him to catch hold of. When we think about that parenting philosophy, it's being present, being in the moment, being able to show that I have an interest. God knows I am probably the worst, and I mean worst, Beyblades player in the world. He beats me at Beyblades. I didn't even know what a Beyblade is, but I play. And I'm like, son, I don't know how to get this little spinning top. It's a $30 spinning top in this little, but I do it.
See, you're good.
He's trying to teach me how to play. Right, I don't know how to do that one now.
Look, let me tell you, my son is 15. He's about to be 16 in a couple of weeks. And he has been trying to get me to do some of his PlayStation games. And I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I was like, I will do it because you want me to, but just make sure it's clear I don't want to.
So what's really funny. So my son, and this is, by the grace of God, my wife and I both have a fairly decent jobs, and life is okay right now. So he has a lot of stuff. But I bought this retro video game system. Now he's got the little Nintendo Switch and all the other junk, but
Right.
he plays the retro game with Mario Brothers and Contra.
Oh my goodness, Steven. Okay, sorry, I got too excited. I digress. But I got the same thing. And I keep telling Evan, I'm like, dude, I can't play your games. I don't know how to use your controller. I don't know any of that stuff. But let's play Contra. Up, up, down, down, left, right.
Left, right, left, right.
Get you 30 men. Yes. Like that is a video game. I don't know what y'all play where our laser shoots out real slow. It's like laser. They won't play with me though. They will not play with me.
Jesus, keep me near the cross.
Right. We just had a total moment because that's me. So tell little Steven, tell Deuce, Aunt Tonya is coming to play with him because Evan is for the birds. He will not play with me.
Yes. So I am all about some Contra. She done went out to the code. They ain't ready for that.
They're
You're a
not.
real player.
Right. Because their codes don't make sense. Why are you Googling codes? No, only a few select people, the real players, do the code.
She said, Googling codes. Lord. My son was trying to play Mike Tyson Punch Out. And I'm like, son, you can't get to Mike Tyson. But Dad, I can Google this code. No, you need to work your way through Glass Joe.
Right. You got to figure it out. You can't just step in there. My son will have the computer up to show him how to navigate something while he's playing. That doesn't make sense to me.
You're cheating.
Okay, so right. And that's why I say, you see what I mean? Toxin tea is, we just have to laugh at ourselves. But this is really good. And go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, so I was going to get back to with the idea that Stephen had this transplant, and how that really started to put me on this different path of purpose. As a lifelong political scientist, first degree in political science, second degree in legislative affairs, third degree, and I'm not even counting the military degrees from War College and joint professional military educations and all of that stuff, but from the academic institutions that are the ones that we could go to. When I went and got a degree at Georgetown in quality, safety, and leadership, the reason why I did that was because what I found was this passion to help people because of my son. And so I oftentimes say that when your advocation, what you love to do, you're advocating for this, and your vocation, what you're paid to do, when those things intersect, you never find yourself working because you're happy. And so that's when I started working with MedStar Georgetown University Hospital and MedStar Health, and sitting on these patient and parent and family advisory councils for quality and safety. And Georgetown, which this was new to me, so this is only about maybe 5.5, 6 years ago. I was an inaugural member of this board. And so here I am. They said, hey, there's a video on YouTube. I'll have to send it to you of how we started this PFAC. And literally, because my son couldn't drink any milk, because that's what caused the transplant. I remember talking to the hospital staff saying, hey, the doctor said he has to drink soy milk in the hospital. And they said, well, we don't have any powdered soy milk. We only have the pre-made soy milk. And I said, well, can't you just go down to the store and buy some? And they were like, well, it's got to be built. It's got to go through materials. It's got to be, da, 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 da. I'm like, wait a minute. Food and nutrition is a cornerstone of you getting better. Right. And so when I go to the hospital, I love the guys that work in the food and nutrition department, because those are the people that are often stepped over, overlooked. But think about it. The only choice you have in the hospital is what you can eat, right? Because when the doctors say you're doing this, you're going to do this. And so here I'm thinking, my son needs this milk rather, and we don't have a means or a method of going to get this quickly. And of course, it happens on a weekend when nobody's there. And so
Always.
they asked me, hey, would you be interested? Right. And they said, would you be interested in sitting on a board? We're standing up to have and families to give us some feedback. And I'm like, yes. And I've been on that board with them, and we have made some tremendous strides to advance quality and safety for patients at MedStar Georgetown and the other MedStar hospitals around the Mid-Atlantic area. And so what that helped me do was to realize that there's something that I have a value that I can give to MedStar and the medical community writ large, because I come from what they call a high reliability organization called the military. So here I
Yeah.
am, over 20 years of service in the military. And when we have a plane that goes down, we don't blame the pilot first. We do all these root cause analysis to figure out what happened. Was it a mechanical thing? Was it something else? Before we go back and say the pilot did this. In the medical community, if something happens, they blame the doctor. First thing out, you blame the doctor. And oh, by the way, there's a great documentary that is out, and Steve Burrows, which I love him to death, great guy. His mom Judy is actually the person that's in this documentary. It's called Bleed Out on HBO, and it really talks about this wall of silence that's put up in hospitals when you have a misdiagnosis, when you have a medical error, that you can't get your medical records. And there's so much bureaucracy, and you don't know who to call to help you. So if you want to sue the hospital, well, you can't, because you don't have your medical records, and you don't even know a doctor or a lawyer rather to call to be like, hey, I want to sue them. They cut off my wrong leg. Okay. And a lot of
Yeah.
lawyers won't take it because it's hard. And so what I found is that, well, I know patients have a voice, and I want to be the person to help those who don't know they have a voice to speak. I'll give a vignette. I recall one time I was in the hospital with Stephen, and this was one of those long stays, right? And
Yeah.
so there was a girl that was in the hospital as well, and she was in the room beside us. And this is really important because it also talks about unconscious bias. And
Mm.
so she looked like me, but she didn't look like me, because I don't have tattoos on my neck and on my face and those types of things. So she looked like me, but she didn't
Right.
look like me.
Right.
And as I'm sitting here at Georgetown, and every day they always come around and do rounding. And rounding is when the doctors come and talk about your kid or your case, and they say, well, what do you think? And they invite me to come in around, and they say, hey, Colonel Coffee, do you want to sit in rounds? And yeah, I'm sitting there with the doctor and with the residents and with all these people, and I'm hearing, I don't understand everything, but I'm hearing what they're doing. I'm a part of what we call shared decision making. And so
Mm.
one day I remember, 35 days in, they missed me, and they send this technician in. And I said, hey, when are rounds? And he's like, oh, we just did them 20 minutes ago. So I professionally but sternly reminded them, I've been here 35 days. Why would I miss going to rounds today?
Mm.
Undeterred, they send the resident or a nurse. And so they have this pecking order, right? Because patients get afraid of white coats and doctors. They send in a nurse, professionally but sternly. Why would I miss going? I've been 35 days. They send in a resident who's a student doctor. They send in the attending, the senior doctor. And I professionally but sternly said, why would I miss going to rounds if I've done this for 35 days? That was probably 5 years ago. I've never missed being in rounds with them. Now, the contrast of that is the girl that was beside me that looked like me but didn't look like me had never sat in rounds, and she was in the hospital for a much longer time, I think about 4.5 months. And I went over there one time at night and knocked on her door, because what happens, and this is what you have to understand, going into the hospital is a significant emotional event for everybody
Right.
that goes. When I go to the Pentagon, and when you guys came on a tour and you showed those pictures, you guys were like, oh my God, look at the stuff that's here. You got McDonald's, you got Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts on the same floor.
Right.
I
Right
don't,
here.
right, right here. But I see that every day, so I don't notice those things. When I go to the hospital, when doctors go to the hospital, they don't notice how sterile the walls look. They don't notice how cold and barren and how bad signage is as a patient, because they see it as their job. No fault, but they see it as their job. And so I come in on this patient family advisory council to help you see what you don't see. It's a significant emotional event. You only go to a hospital when you're sick or somebody you know is sick. And I go there to help you understand that. So I'm talking to this girl and I say, hey, I've never seen you in rounds. And what you find out is that when your family leaves the hospital, your new family becomes the nurses, the techs, and the other patients because
Mm-hmm.
they're there after visiting hours. So I'm talking to her and I'm like, hey, no, you never go to rounds. And she said, well, yeah, they never invited me to come. And I said, and this is where I had to really break this down. And again, where the passion really kicked in. I said, when we're in the hospital, you and I are the exact same person. It doesn't matter about our social, economic, educational background. We are both two concerned parents here for our children. So you need to make sure that you're included because you have a voice. And more importantly, you need to understand what they're saying and they need to talk to you as a patient partner. And that made the difference because she then got the courage to engage with one of the doctors and say, hey, can I sit in as well? So where's the difference? They didn't question whether they were coming to get me until that one time they forgot. And they forgot since.
Never
But they
again.
never asked. But they never asked her. And
Yeah.
so that experience highlighted for me that there's a lot of things that go on. There are disparities in care. There's disparities in care. There's things that are really just prevalent in medicine that need to have attention brought to them. And so when I got that kind of fire in me, that advocacy in me, I was like, I got to do something with this. And Georgetown had an opportunity, and I took the plunge and got another master's.
I love that. I love that. And here's the funny thing, like I see how some of our things often mirror because I am not, as my family calls it, medical. I am not medical whatsoever. But the same sort of advocacy is the route that my life has taken me as it relates to children. And it has gone in education, it has gone in community, it has gone in law, and it has always brought me back to advocating for children, especially children who cannot advocate for themselves. And so I love this because what you do is you're advocating for that piece. And as we talk about, the world talks about privilege a lot of times, and we talk about white privilege, right? But we don't always talk about the
Yeah.
privilege we have within our own race and then how we
Yes.
use that privilege in order to make sure that we are making way for other people, whether it's because I am a male, whether it is because I am the colorism issue, fairer skin versus darker skin, hair texture, all of these different things. We don't realize the power that we hold within that. In we have to also be conscious of our privilege, and as simple as what you did by telling her the power that was at her grasp,
Yeah.
that was you asserting, I have the privilege because I have this background, I have this knowledge, and I'm here. Maybe it was because I'm male, maybe it's not, maybe it's because I didn't have tattoos, maybe it is. We don't know, but you used what you had in order to elevate someone else. And that's at the
Yeah.
heart of advocacy. I love
Yeah.
that. I will tell you,
Absolutely.
I have been taking so many notes. So, if you all are joining us, if you're watching this on the replay, this is my Morehouse brother, Stephen Coffey, Colonel Stephen Coffey, and he has joined us today just to talk about philosophies for life, as well as on my podcast, the Round to It podcast. He also shared some great lessons for life, but also for parenting. So if you are interested, go ahead and check out the Round to It podcast with Tonya Nicole, and he will be on Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, or you can catch him anytime after that, but that's when it will be published for you to listen and hear all of the knowledge and nuggets that he was dropping. And we had fun, but that he was dropping on the podcast. Stephen, this was excellent. I don't want would love to come and let's do this again. Let's continue this conversation. If you're joining us, make sure you follow Stephen on his social media. Go see
Yeah.
Stephen and little Stephen on coffee breaks. They do coffee
Yeah.
breaks every Saturday morning. Is it at 10?
We'll do about 10 o'clock, yeah.
Ish. But like,
10-ish.
yeah, just say you want to hear the alerts, because when you see them together, it is so authentic and it is so much love and energy in there. And it's one of those things you're just like, I want a piece of it. I want something positive today. I don't
Yeah.
always get it live, but when I get it live, I love it. And sometimes I get the replays, because it is a great chance to just see that father-son dynamic, especially as it relates to positive Black fathers and Black children. So thank you so much, Stephen, for joining me. Do you have any last words for the audience?
You know what? I think that in this time, the one thing I can leave with you is to take care of each other, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. I leave with this. What we saw the past couple weeks here, certainly with the election, was tough. It was very tough for me as a 20-year now veteran of the military, as a lifelong political scientist. It's very tough. But what I resolved to understand, and what I take solace in, is that we're a country that still leans on and needs each other. And so I encourage you all to continue to take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And what that means is wearing a mask, washing your hands, socially distance, calling each other, being present in the moment, doing those things that are not just about you, but about others, whatever those things are for your specific situation. Take care of yourself and take care of others, and we will make this world a much better place. And so I have enjoyed this. Like she said, please follow us on coffee breaks. We do it every Saturday, and it's a lot of good fun there. So
Thank you so much, Stephen. I don't even think I introduced myself today. I was so excited about the topic. My name is Tonya Nicole. I'm the Universal Mama Bear and the parent coach extraordinaire. And I help parents and children stop breaking down and start breaking through, to bridge those gaps that divide one another. If you're looking for a parent coach to help you with you and your youth, your teenager, give me an email, give me a shout out, make a connection. I would love to be there to help you and support that through my professional experience and in my tried and true with my own kids. They're all right. They're all right. I like them.
you got a Spelman night coming up, so I'm excited for you.
I do. And speaking
My
of,
cousin Khalees got accepted to Spelman also.
did she? That's awesome. So we'll have to hook up our girls. This is Stephen and
Yes.
I at homecoming in 2008. I look so young. Look, I had to crop out what was in your hand.
I wish you had a mustache back then. It was water. It was water.
I know. But we don't want any misunderstandings.
No confusion.
All right. That's all I have for you all. I hope you all have enjoyed this as much as I have. You probably haven't, but that's okay. Stephen has on his old school Morehouse sweatshirt. I've got my new school Morehouse sweatshirt to represent the HBCU love. It probably would have made sense if I would have wore my Spelman sweatshirt, and then we could have been Spelman more, but whatever.
Yeah, we're gonna spend more, whatever.
Exactly. We'll just go with it. All right. This has
Feel
been
good.
Toxin. Exactly. This has been Toxin Tea with me, Tonya Nicole, and my very special guest, Colonel Stephen Coffey. Peace, small hearts, stay different.